Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are tackling a massive, incredibly significant shift in global trade and regulation. We're going to completely demystify the geopolitical and business implications of the European Union's newest 21st Sanctions package against Russia. And look, this isn't just about reading off a boring list of restricted items, it's about understanding how these rules are literally reshaping global supply chains right before our eyes.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Just look at this quote from European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. It really sets the high-stakes stage for everything we're about to talk about. It highlights the absolute core of the EU's evolving strategy, which is this relentless focus on targeting the deep, underlying revenue sources funding the Russian state. As you'll see today, the EU is getting much more creative in how they actually apply this pressure.
So, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the 21st package itself. Then, we'll look at the Greek deadlock, how regulators are targeting the shadow fleet, cracking down on circumvention, and finally, what businesses absolutely must do right now.
All right, Section 1, the 21st package and how they're plugging the leaks.
So, this new package is a massive strategic shift away from those blunt, direct bans we saw earlier on. The European Union basically realized, hey, putting a company on a blacklist isn't actually enough if that company can just go and hire a middleman, right? So, regulators are now heavily targeting third-country intermediaries and the incredibly complex supply chains that make sanctions evasion possible in the first place. Their radar has expanded to cover entities registered in places like China, Turkey, and the UAE. It's a profound shift from focusing solely on the who to actively hunting down the how.
Moving on to Section 2, the Greek deadlock, which was a major geopolitical compromise.
You know, these massive packages don't just appear overnight. They're the product of intense behind-the-scenes negotiations. And this one was actually stalled for weeks. And this brilliantly illustrates the real tension between big geopolitical goals and domestic economic interests. See, the EU proposed a strict total ban on Russian liquefied natural gas imports and terminal services by January 2027. But Greece pushed back hard. Why? Well, because Greece is a global maritime superpower. Their ship owners control roughly 1/5 of the entire global merchant fleet. So they argued that a total ban would completely devastate their domestic shipping sector, and Russia would just turn around and hire non-EU carriers to move their gas anyway. So, to break this deadlock, a compromise had to be reached. The final rule still implements some really tough measures, but it carves out a highly specific exemption. Basically, European vessels can still transport Russian LNG to third countries, but only if the contracts for that transport were signed before February 24, 2022, the day the full-scale invasion of Ukraine began. It's a very precise needle to thread, for sure, and the Council of the EU will be reviewing this exemption every single year just to ensure it isn't being abused.
Which brings us to Section 3, targeting the shadow fleet.
Let's see how this builds into the physical targets of the package, starting out on the water. Now, you hear the term shadow fleet all the time in the news, and it sounds totally like something out of a spy movie, right? But practically speaking, what we're talking about is a clandestine network of mostly aging, older vessels that sail under foreign flags. They exist for one reason: to bypass international sanctions, moving oil completely outside of standard global insurance and oversight systems. This is exactly what European regulators are now actively hunting down.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer precision of the EU's response. Exactly 30 further vessels linked to this shadow network have been explicitly blacklisted in this new package. That means they are completely cut off from European ports. Plus, EU companies are strictly banned from providing them with any support services whatsoever. No bunkering, no refueling, nothing. At the exact same time, the EU has extended the price cap on Russian oil, freezing it at $44.10 per barrel. So think about what's happening here. By locking in this price cap while simultaneously attacking the shadow fleet vessels used to bypass it, regulators are basically aiming to squeeze Moscow's energy profits from both sides, neutralizing the impact of global market swings.
All right, Section 4, cracking down on circumvention.
So the net isn't just tightening out on the oceans, it's tightening in the financial and technological sectors across third-party nations too. The financial dragnet is definitely widening. While the package imposes transaction bans on 31 additional Russian banks, check out the other targets here. 20 third-country entities, including banks and oil traders based totally outside of Russia, are now sanctioned. Regulators are also coming after crypto asset platforms that facilitate illegal transfers, and they are heavily restricting the export of things like metals, alloys, and drone jamming systems used in military and aerospace tech.
The thing to understand here is that regulators aren't just waiting around for blatant, obvious violations anymore. They are actively hunting for behavioral anomalies. Like if a brand new company over in the UAE suddenly orders a massive, completely abnormal volume of aerospace components and then requests some bizarre, complex delivery route, that is a glaring red flag. The logic here is pretty brilliant. By tracking these suspicious trade patterns, regulators can identify sanctions evasion before the goods ever even cross into Russian territory.
Let's wrap up with Section 5, what businesses must do.
Because let's be real, this isn't just theory. This is an urgent, daily, operational reality. You really have to ask yourself right now, how does this expanding, extraterritorial reach impact your own cross-border transactions? Even if your company operates entirely outside of Europe and Russia, if you rely on European banks, European suppliers, or European logistics partners, you are now operating under their microscope.
So the crucial point is this: your risk is no longer limited to who you deal with directly. You can't just throw your hands up and say, well, we don't sell to Russia. European suppliers and banks are terrified of getting hit with hefty penalties right now. And that means they are going to rigorously scrutinize a company's entire transaction chain before they ever clear a payment or ship a single product.
If you want to survive in this new rules-based environment, you absolutely must adopt these 3 indispensable compliance steps. Step 1. You have to rigorously check the origin of your goods. Step 2. Thoroughly profile every single intermediary in your logistics chain. Literally, no blind spots allowed. And Step 3. Verify, without a shadow of a doubt, the actual end user of your product.
And if we look at advanced compliance, it gets even stricter. You need to audit any goods that could have a dual civilian and military use. You must enforce contractual clauses that legally restrict your buyers from reselling to sanctioned entities. You've got to verify the actual ownership structures of the companies you deal with, and you absolutely must maintain documented proof of end use. If you are missing these documents, jittery European partners honestly won't hesitate to suspend your deliveries or completely freeze your payments.
So I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative thought to ponder today. Is your compliance network truly strong enough to withstand the EU's rapidly tightening net? The landscape of global trade has fundamentally changed. And adaptation? Well, it's just no longer optional. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep analyzing, keep adapting, and I'll see you next time as we continue to make sense of the world's most complex issues.